To order. This is the 28th of April, and we will move forward with our business. With that said, I always like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you all would join me. Mr. Thompson, would you lead us tonight?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With that said, the beginning of our business, we need to call a public hearing for our county road aid. And, well, we do need to take roll, don't we? So, Ms. Hamilton, will you call the roll, please?
Mr. Hostetler.
Present.
Mr. Lyons.
Here.
Mr. Wallace.
Here.
Mr. Corman.
Present.
Mr. Ellison.
Here.
Mr. Thompson.
Here.
Mr. Livingston.
Here.
Mr. Marshall.
Here.
Judge Covington.
Present. We've got that taken care of. So at this time, we will open a public hearing related to county road aid and then local government economic assistance funds. And I'd like to call on J.R. Brandenburg to share and make a recommendation.
Good evening, everyone. This year's repaving, what I would like to present would be Pratt Lane, Northeast County Line Road, Rolling Ridge, Flint Rock, Arrowhead, Knight Court, Alfred Court, Enid Court, Loxley Drive, King Arthur Court, Joshua Lane, Joshua Court, Thomas Lane, Walnut Creek, Old Farm Road, Ashwood Circle, Willowbrook Lane, Shuttle Drive, Elizabeth Jade, Alexander Jet, and Big Sky Parkway. That's roughly 10 miles of roads, basically $1 million worth of repaving. And one thing that happened last year with the wet weather and everything, we didn't get to do all of the roads last year, and they're picking it up now. They've got 4 of our roads from last year paved so far, and we still got Locust Fork, Blowing Tree, Windsong, Malibu Canyon, East Honaker. They've got 4 of them already done, and they're going to knock all those out. And then once all these are okayed, if the court chooses to do it, we'll get started on these.
So pick up the 25s and interstate projects, whether all those didn't get done at all last year that we are already approved, right?
From last year, yes.
Yeah.
Through the state, yes.
So there's a carryover.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
You named a lot of roads. Are any of those connecting so that it's kind of one job? And that seems like going to be a lot of jumping around to do
Well,
that much road.
several of these are connected,
That's what
Mr. Lyons, and subdivisions and everything, like Clearview Estates, there's 1, 2 in Buffalo Trace, several in Lancelot, several in Homestead.
Couple in Riften Meadows, yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Motion to approve the recommendation.
Well, we don't have to make a motion, but with that said, let the record reflect that there were no written comments submitted, and then if there's no other comments, then we can close the public hearing.
So you need a motion for that?
No. So it's really just essentially putting it on the record. So with that said, JR, thank you. Appreciate it. That will move us to consideration of the minutes from April 8th and April 25th, previous minutes. Any questions or comments as presented?
Motion.
Motion from David Livingston.
We're doing them both?
Yes.
Second.
Second from Mr. Hostetler. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next item are the transfers for your consideration. Any questions or comments related to those transfers?
Motion to approve.
Motion from Kelly Corman, second from Tim Thompson. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, bills and hand checks as presented in your packet. Any questions or comments related to those? Motion from Alvin Lyons, second from Dwayne Ellison. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Let the record reflect that the Scott County Clerk submitted fees in the amount of $187,150.67. Number 9 on our agenda is sheriff's fees. Let the record reflect that Scott County Sheriff submitted fees in the amount of $81,237.70. That leads us to a celebration to recognize the service, long-time service of one Mr. Orville Cook. Mr. Cook, we are honored to have you here tonight. Thank you very, very much, and pleased to host friends and family as well. Mr. Our county attorney, Rand Marshall, will read the proclamation.
Proclamation honoring Orville H. Cook for a dedicated career of service as a firefighter. Whereas Orville H. Cook was born and raised in Scott County, Kentucky. Whereas Mr. Cook joined the Lexington Fire Department on March 1st, 1957, retired from that department on January 2nd, 1985, after serving for 28 years. And whereas in September 2021, the Lexington Fire Department celebrated 150 years of service, and Mr. Cook was honored as being the oldest living Lexington Fire Department member. Whereas prior to serving with the Lexington Fire Department, Mr. Cook was a volunteer firefighter with the very first Scott County Fire Department in 1952. Whereas Mr. Cook was the first to set up a first aid station at Ed Davis School football games. And whereas from 1996 to 1997, Mr. Cook served as the interim chief of the Georgetown Fire Department, during which term he received a commendation from the Kentucky State Fire Marshal, a citation from the Kentucky House of Representatives for outstanding service, and a Fire Safety Commendation Award from the National Society of the Sons of the American Revolution. And whereas in 2003, Mr. Cook was given a commendation award from the Kentucky Senate for rescuing an individual from a burning vehicle on Galloway Road in Scott County, Kentucky. Now, therefore, let it be known that the Scott County Fiscal Court and Judge Executive Joe Pack Covington hereby honor and praise Orville H. Cook for his long career of distinguished and dedicated service as a firefighter.
Join me. Mr. Cook, would you join me in the front? And then,
I'm sure you're going to want the rest of it. I don't know. Well, maybe not. Just yet.
I'm going to ask you if you would like to say anything or share anything, and I'd like to ask the magistrates to take a picture of us, if that would be okay.
That would be, I'd be more than happy.
All right. The floor is yours.
Do you want me here?
Yeah. We're not going to tell you.
I talk too much.
No.
It's, I don't expect this. First of all, I want you to meet my wife, adorable Maddie. Yeah. she has stood beside me and helped me and guided me all along. And I appreciate it. And my son is here, and Rick Cook, he was a highly decorated orthopedic, not orthopedic, respiratory therapist at St. Joe for 40 years. And he was nationally recognized, by the way, the only one that ever happened. And his wife is here. My daughter is here, Lisa. And my friends, Glenn and Sandy, and Carol is here. All my friends. It's been a long road. You know, I went to school here. Georgetown's my roots, even though I spent many years in Lexington. And I went to school at Garth. Of course, I had no choice. There wasn't any more. And it was a good place to be, though. And I enjoyed playing ball, which I did. And I wasn't much of a basketball player, but I played football. I did something that most people didn't do. I played varsity ball as an 8th grader. And I was a center. And I could center a football like a rocket. I'll tell you one little story and I'll quit. I was practicing with the junior varsity. And this fella came down through the field and he kept watching me and watching. I couldn't tell. He sort of had his head down. I couldn't tell who it was. And I was centering the football for punters. And he stood there a long time, and finally he came down and he said, I want you to come up with the varsity. And that I did. And from that day forward, why, I was part of the varsity as an 8th grader. But that same day, it didn't all go well. And he had me centering to in a formation. And some of you will recognize the name, Bobby Warren. Bobby had won the state mile and half mile, and this was done in one day, by the way. He was a terrific runner, and he was the tailback, and he's the coach Joe Johnson. He said, "I want you to center the football," and said, "Hit him right in the chest. Just don't worry. You don't have to move around." Well, I could center a football like a rocket. And I was a little nervous at the time, and they called the play, and I centered the football, and it hit him right here. He never got his hands on it. He went down like a rock. And it really had me nervous when he turned blue. And they had a terrible time getting the guy his wind back. But I learned the hard way, you pay attention and do things the right way. But anyway, that's my story on the football. I'll stop. But this thing of the fire service is it grows on you, and I have taught it. I'm an instructor, or was an instructor for the state. I taught. I was honored in teaching in the National Aquatic School. And I did not go up there to teach. I went up there to learn. And a little fellow came up to me and said, "I want you to teach my class." Well, I didn't know what class he was talking about. And he said, just a general first aid, wounds, for instance. And come to find out, this gentleman was a doctor. He was head of the Department of Health and Welfare State of New York. And I taught his class. There were 7 firefighters there. There were over 300 people that came from all over the coast to certify through the Red Cross. They had to have it to work the summer. And the last day of the 2 weeks that we were there, and it was on a lake in cold water, I'm telling you, out of this world. I became a pole bearer there too. And he called me up there. I thought it was something wrong, maybe at home. And he offered me, he said, how would you like to go to medical school? And, well, it floored me. And I told him, I said, I don't think I'm sharp enough to do that. He said, I'll see that you want nothing, and that I will back you in medical school. And he looked at my hands, and of course I got big hands. And he said, those are hands of a surgeon. I had to turn the man down. I still had in mind the fire service. And that's what I've dedicated myself and my family to. Until the day I die, it'll be that way. I appreciate this. I don't really deserve it, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then, while we're at it, Chief Woods, we just opened up a hiring process. We need a couple. You look like you can climb right up on that truck and go.
Sweet.
You're better at this. No,
Hold your smiles.
Let's get one more with our fire staff. Yeah.
Kelly and Chad, back out just a little.
Kelly.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay.
You got that awkward smile going on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you recommended it. Go pat down. 1, 2, 3. Got it.
Yeah.
Judge, can I say something just for a second?
Absolutely, Mr. Thompson.
Chief Cook's a hero to me, just for what he does and with the fire service in general, but what he's done for our community, just our region, to be quite honest. I went and was talking to him. I just stopped and said hello, and his house is like a fire museum. And when you walk in, and I think the coolest thing about it, and he mentioned the first thing he said was his wife, and it's so awesome to see how supportive his wife is. His wife, I think, is the most proud wife I think there is in the country. But he gave me some stuff, and I think it's very cool. And I'd like to maybe try to work with Miss Cook to maybe get some of this stuff to give to Chief Ward to put at the firehouse. But the original fire truck for Scott County, before we actually had a fire department, this was more of a pay-as-you-go kind of deal. And then pictures of him, but just glad to have him. And just thank you for everything you've done. But I'll pass these down to you guys.
Thank you.
Pass them that way.
All right. Thank you all. We will move now. We have guest, Dr. Chip Richardson. Dr. Richardson, thank you for joining us today. And Dr. Richardson is going to make a presentation and request for consideration of a grant match. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
No.
Many of you know me, some of you do not. I'm Chip Richardson. I'm one of the town ophthalmologists. Myself and my partner serve this community for 15 years. I'm also a commissioner for the Native American Heritage Commission, which puts me in a good place to make this presentation today. I'm also very determined. For those that know me, I don't surrender often. And to me today, this is a plea for the county's help for a project that I think is of paramount importance. So why am I here now? Well, everyone knows that the 1825 Choctaw Academy is obviously a structure in need. It's currently protected from rain, but not protected from thunder, wildlife, and of course these blowing storms we've had lately. When the roof and southern wall collapsed in 2012, it's evident that it's still continuing to decline. With every thunderstorm, another stone falls out of the south wall. Despite the temporary roof that was funded in part by the Choctaw Nation, and of course the wonderful people in this community. I'm here because the opportunity to save it, I think, is nearing its end. I feel like I've reached the end after 10 years. I fear that at some point this will be gone forever, and I think this is a crisis in our national history. In 2012, shortly after I purchased the land, this is what the Academy did for me. The apical roof beam collapsed and it blew out the south wall. But it's remarkable that a 20 by 30 dry lay stone structure lasted literally 200 years without maintenance. So this is an opportunity for our generation. There is a federal Saving America Treasures grant that's for restoration, and it could potentially be completed by its bicentennial, which would of course be 2025. The grant requires an applicant and a fiscal agent. The county actually would score extremely high to be both. The grant would be, almost insurpassable in terms of other, competing applicants. Funds, of course, are one-to-one matched by the federal grant, and there is, of course, a graduate student that I met from Loyola who will help write the grant, so no pressure. We'll have someone write the grant for us if you guys will help me. I also envision for the fiscal part of it maybe some kind of a corporate, county partnership. The grant is somewhat loose in terms of how you define what the fiscal agent part of it is, and I think that you guys, in terms of the court, have the power to help find that person. So why the county? Well, of course, the 1825 Choctaw County is in the county. It's not in the city. It's the county's treasure. I bought the land that it sits on because I have a personal interest in history, and so I could position it to be saved. I gifted a couple years ago an easement on the exterior to the Scott County Museum with a program for public viewing interpretation. So there's public benefit abound here. I think this represents the last opportunity to save the most interpretive treasure in Scott County, and I mean that. The most important place of all antebellum America, where natives, African Americans, and whites all came together to better their lives through education. This is honest progressivism. It will enhance tourism, teach future generations about the amazing progressive roots of Kentucky. Our critical history here in the genesis of Scott County changed Indian nations. And how do I know this is a fact? In 2016, Stamping Ground Elementary teachers Robin Bays and Jennifer Race, who they did want to be here tonight, did an entire year-long project on the Stamping Ground Choctaw Academy, and they even raised $500 to help stabilize the internal part of the structure. Amazing! You have to see the video on the Facebook page. An amazing amount of excitement and integration came from those students. So in 2018, I felt like the project was this. It was the world in my hands, and I'll tell you why. In 2018, I put together a group. This was from the Herald Leader. I put together a group of everybody that's everybody for historic preservation. We had Dry Lay Stone Conservancy. We had timber carpentry from Shaker Village. We had historic architects. We had the Choctaw Nation. We had a couple representatives that came all the way from Durant, Oklahoma. We had Heritage Council, the Congressman's office. We had Ann Bevins. Everyone who's anyone in terms of historic preservation was put together in one place, and we sat down and we talked about how we were going to save this great place. Everything was good. I was so excited. There was a corporate sponsor named IBEC, and their CEO at the time was from South Africa, and he loved this story of empowerment. And he put IBEC in a position to raise the money, and then the project went cold. he left IBEC, and the current CEO didn't have the taste, to spend their foundation money on this project. I've attempted corporate sponsorship, crowdfunding, Heritage Council easements. I've offered the museum to raise funds. The Kentucky Humanities Council, Bluegrass Historic Trust, none seem to have the gumption to be fiscal partners for this restoration. 10 years of exhausting effort. And I think now maybe I just didn't ask the right party. Maybe I didn't push the right buttons. Maybe this is my fault. But I'm sure I tried because I work hard at these things. Or maybe this is the future of historic preservation. Has corporate wokeness potentially poisoned the well? Is this the future of historic preservation? And we've all seen this on the TV. This is ridiculous, the way we treat American history. But despite state history being taught less and less, I know this body understands the importance of history, and the importance of having tangible, interpretive places for our youth and our public to explore. And it's proven. Your own homepage has information about the Choctaw Academy. You know it's important. Understanding the genesis of America helps people understand what it means to be American and not repeat those mistakes from the past. We can do better through the rediscovery of this special place. So is it valued? Some people go, boarding schools are awful. No, this was not the typical boarding school. This boarding school was secular, and it was on the order of the Choctaw Nations. The mantra in 1820 was educate or perish. The Native Americans from the 17 tribes that went here knew that education was the secret to survival. And this, I'll just paraphrase a little bit. This is the Tribal Historic Preservation Officer's memo. The Choctaw Nation considers Choctaw Academy in Scott County, Kentucky, a critical part of our cultural and tangible heritage. At Choctaw Academy, many students built intertribal bonds that in postgraduate life helped them challenge racial oppression and U.S. Indian policy. Further, he says, they learned lessons there that helped them rebuild the Choctaw Nation in Indian territory and develop a new educational system there. So not only was the Socratic method important to what they learned here from 1820 to 1848, but it was important because it took a system to Oklahoma, which is still used today, to educate the natives. Our U.S. Congressman knows it's important. This was a really nice memo that Congressman Barr sent me in 2018, encouraging anyone who helps with the project to stay engaged. And of course, remember a couple of years ago, I presented the book Great Crossings to this body, and I think I shared the video that the Stamping Ground Elementary had done at the time. But from Christina Snyder, the author of the de facto history book on the Choctaw Academy, founded in 1825, the Choctaw Academy was the first federal boarding school in the United States. Over the next 2 decades, the academy became home to over 600 Native American boys and men representing 17 different tribal nations. The head teacher at the academy also secretly educated a small group of free and enslaved African Americans. Famous in its day, Marquis de Lafayette visited it in 1825. This school was considered an experiment in education that challenged the racist norms of antebellum America. Though Native nations ultimately lost trust in federal education and withdrew the children in 1848, the Choctaw Academy educated some of the most important Native American leaders of the 19th century. We're talking doctors, lawyers, educators, people that went back to the nation to help them protect themselves against oppressive treaties signed with the United States. This is a book that's not on Amazon. It hasn't been published nationally. But in that book, this was published by a PhD for the Choctaw Nation. It says, in part, the Choctaw Academy did a vast amount of good. The best men we saw in the nation had there received their education. They were active, intelligent, and earnest men who lived to bless their race by these efficient labors in the work of civilization. The Choctaw Nation clearly understands the importance of the place here in Scott County. In 2017, after I had put together the work to get this restored, the National Trust for Historic Preservation published this in their big magazine called Preservation. This is an amazing place to be published if you have anything that's historic. They said it had been saved, that little blue icon at the top. It's been saved. Well, I thought it had been. And then, of course, as I mentioned, in 2018, a lot of my sponsors started to turn away. In 2015, the Kentucky Bluegrass Historic Trust called it one of Kentucky's 11 historic sites that are endangered. And you can see a picture of it there. That was the front of it after the 2012 roof collapse. But of course, I wasn't giving up. We've done more awareness and more awareness and more awareness. The Choctaw Nation invited me to do a speaker series. This was just a few months ago where I did a webinar with the nation. And of course, anyone that's been opening the news graphic has seen the multiple articles that have been written about the Choctaw Academy going back to 2015. This was the original article that we wrote when I was doing crowdfunding. And of course, this court was involved in one of the articles, and they spelled Choctaw wrong, but that's okay. We won't hold that against them. And then, of course, the Wallace Barn was a big thing. And then Tom Eblin from the Herald Leader picked it up because he felt that this was an amazing story of Kentucky history. And then, of course, we had some supply chain issues, yes, even before COVID. And then the roof finally got built, and that was awesome. I've got a pole barn over the top of it. Great Crossings, the book. Christina Snyder came and spoke at the museum in 2017. There's the Paramount article from the Herald Leader. And, of course, even just a few months ago, it's still showing up in the paper. This was an op-ed that was written about Richard Mentor Johnson and the Choctaw Academy. I mean, this is an integral part of Kentucky and national history. I spoke to the Sons of the American Revolution in 2017. I've given presentations to the museum, to the library. There's the library placard. The library itself did a little piece on it. The Ghosts of Blue Spring, that was the setup for my lecture. And of course, here's something that's really important. The Save the Choctaw Academy Facebook page today has over 600 followers. That's a really grand accomplishment for a non-state or local entity. 600 followers is remarkable for anything that's historic. That will give you an idea how much momentum sits behind this project in terms of public interest. But if you still have doubts, I brought the master. I brought Ann Bevins with me, who's our de facto Scott County historian, for any questions. On your desks, I have the appraisals that came from the 2017 work. If I remember right, it was about $120,000 for the timber work. The building's very simple. It's just stone and timber. And then the stone work from the Dry Lay Stone Conservancy, I think, was like around $104,000. There was no budget in there for the stucco that goes on the exterior surface. I figured between that and any kind of casework on the windows, it might be an extra, $30,000 or $40,000. So all in, if you take half of what it takes to repair it, the county's looking at about $140,000. And that is a bargain considering the impact that this has had on the world. This roof, here's a picture of it, and this is a couple of the folks, the kiddos from the Stamping Ground Elementary School. This roof, you can see, obviously, you get some wind that's blowing more than about 30 degrees, and the inside of it's still getting wet. But we've done an awful lot to slow it down. But I really fear, after seeing day after day after day more stones falling out of the back wall, that the days are numbered for this project. And I also have some history, which I won't get into, but I wanted to open the floor a little bit to questions. I'm very passionate about this. It's not often in one's life, especially someone like myself whose family has studied the American Revolution for years and years. It's not often that one gets to truly discover a bit of American history that had been forgotten. If this was in Lexington where the Henry Clay Estate was, I guarantee you this would look like the Henry Clay Estate. But it's in the middle of a farm in the middle of Scott County, and it's been forgotten. But this is the most integral place in antebellum America, and there's a story to be told here, and I don't want the county to lose the opportunity to save it.
Questions, comments?
In the beginning, I was just wondering about your passion, but you.
Thank you.
I'm kidding, Dr. Richardson. So you're talking about a grant application.
Correct.
Is there a timeline with that? Are you
So
under a timeline or?
The 2021 fiscal year, the grant application closed in December. They haven't announced this one yet, but I imagine it'll probably be December sometime.
2022.
December 2022, yeah. Yeah.
And you said it was I'm sorry.
I was just going to ask that, but the numbers that you know of are from 2017.
Right. Well, the fun thing about this is all the material except for some of the timber is still sitting on the ground. Right. Like you don't, the stone is there. Yeah, any labor costs, of course, have to be factored into inflation for sure.
But
you may have said this. Is there public access, or would there
have
to be?
Yeah. So when I bought the farm, so to speak, bought the project, there was a driveway that goes straight to the Choctaw Academy, and it was part of the neighbor's gravel road. I have an easement that says for the purposes of restoration and viewing, so non-commercial restoration and viewing. So that's why we put the museum, who's in charge of protecting artifacts. There's nothing in the museum's bylaws that says the artifact has to be in the walls of the museum. So we found a way to essentially incorporate all those easements and accesses to effectively open it to the public. Good question.
Sir, has this been, you may have said this, if you did, I apologize. Has this been deemed a National Historic Site?
Yes, this is 1978, Ann put it on the National Historic Register as a nationally significant place. And also a good question in the follow-up, it was visited 3 weeks ago by a committee person for the National Historic Landmark Committee. And in the next couple of weeks, it's actually being considered for landmark status. There are only 30 landmarks in the state of Kentucky, 30-some landmarks in the state of Kentucky. That would be huge. I mean, huge. I mean, Statue of Liberty is landmark.
Did you say it's a 1-to-1 match, the grant you're looking
Yes.
for?
If you get that status, does that help in any way funding-wise?
No, what it does do when it's on the National Park Service is part of its management, becomes part of the management. And some people have asked, why is the Choctaw Nation not, the Choctaw Nation? So I'm going to just go ahead and fend off that question too. I see someone shaking their head. The Choctaw Nation, I mean, I have talked to their foundation. Of course, I know them on a first name basis now, a lot of the leadership folks there. The problem with the nation is that they have a paradigm where they do not invest or maintain things that are outside of the territory. They will tell you that this is the oldest tangible piece of Choctaw history, and it's sitting here in Scott County. But they won't invest in it because they don't want to be involved in making an investment in something that they have to manage, thousands of miles away from Oklahoma or 1,000 miles away from Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, I have really, really worked that until I can't work it anymore.
Kind of dovetail what Rick said. If your optometry practice goes into trouble, you got a future as a salesman. That's a given. But
well, you got to make me. I can't sell just anything. It's got to be something I believe in.
But my concern here is you're asking for a significant amount of county taxpayer dollars to go toward a privately owned piece of property.
No, actually, the museum has an easement on the exterior.
Easement, that it's not ownership though.
Right. That's right.
Right.
That's right. But forever the Scott County Museum is in charge of the control over the exterior.
Yeah, I was going to ask. You said the easement was to the exterior.
Correct.
If it is restored, that does not.
Oh, the only part of the restoration that we're talking about right now is actually the exterior.
Right.
The museum in the easement held the right to continue investment and restore the interior at their option, which I'm okay with. And at that point, we'd have to readdress the easement. But the reason why we don't want to open the inside is just from a liability standpoint. The ash floors are very fragile. You really don't want people, crawling around on the inside. Yeah.
Is the museum its own nonprofit, or how is that structured under us?
Ms. Bevins, is that a question from? I
I
believe they're a
was wondering if the museum
501c3.
Is it connected to county government, or is it its own standalone nonprofit?
The museum was established as a separate entity.
Okay.
But it was established with the support of county government.
Okay.
So the question would be, is it its own 501c3?
Correct.
And we'd probably need to get confirmation on that. Yeah, I'm sure it is.
I know it receives, stipends and support from the county and city.
Yes.
The reason I was asking that is because if it was part of county government, that's an interesting concept of having an easement to the library, because we know that if private dollars are spent to build a structure on public land, it becomes owned by the public.
I think it would be an issue about ownership. An easement might be fine, I don't know. It might take a deed, though, to the county, for the county to put money into it. Okay. It would bear research, I think. Okay.
And I'm amenable to any solution.
Just to save.
Just to save it. I mean, I offered to sell the parcel plus to the Choctaw Nation, and like I said, it violates that primary rule.
Sure. So the official request is to match the grant, but our match would be capped at $150,000?
140 to 150,000, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
But it sounds like we need to do a little on the legal backgrounding
I think so.
of what we can do. Because I know, for example, this may not even apply, but county roads in a subdivision or wherever, I know we can't go on the homeowner's property and repair something. For example, a culvert running under When it shows up in the homeowner's yard, we can't go over and fix that. We can only fix what's on the roadway. And that may not be an apples to apples example, but it may.
Something worth consideration.
Yeah, you'll find the easement speaks to restoration and maintenance, both.
So you've done a little research on that, yeah.
So we appreciate the presentation. We appreciate the passion. And I think we all understand the significance. And I'll ask Rand to help us look at the legalities. And then this would be something for the court to consider in its budget as we move forward here. We'll have a first reading in May and a second reading. We'll have first reading May 13th and second reading there 2 weeks afterwards.
Okay.
So.
Does anyone have any questions for Ann? Any historic related questions?
Yeah, I do want to say that I think it's really important for all of us in Scott County, under the leadership of our county fiscal court and you magistrates, to provide the leadership and for the rest of us to pitch in to save what is one of the most important landmarks in not only Scott County, but Kentucky, but American history.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much.
With that said, we will move in table number 13, and we'll have discussion at our work session, come back on May 13th, and consider the updated detention center SOPs. But we do have number 12 that I skipped. I'm having trouble. I need to get me a ruler to stick here as we go down through here. Resolution 2204, community project funding. And this initiated from a call from Congressman Barr's office. And we had been working on a FEMA hazard mitigation grant project, just looking at the feasibility of it. And Great Crossing Dam, I think everyone realizes that it's been the site of some fatalities. That dam is very popular site for a lot of people to go in the summertime and springtime. And you know, if we could mitigate the risk of the boil below the dam, and perhaps make it a little bit safer, it would be a step in the right direction for consideration. So that's the thought process, and the way we would mitigate the risk is we would leave the dam alone, but below the dam, what would be constructed is essentially what's called a rock ramp, and it would stair step away from the level of the dam and feather out gradually away from the dam, thus eliminating the boil. But the pool on the upper side of the dam would remain intact. There's a great concern from the community about keeping that pool intact and undisturbed. So we would be keeping that as is, but then mitigating the risk below the dam. So with this additional possible source of funding coming from Congressman Barr's office, we thought it would be worth the consideration. And what this would be in the form of a 75-25 match from the court. Now let me say publicly that the $3.2 million estimate was done by Strand and Associates, and it's a very preliminary estimate. And I would venture to say that my hope would be that this work could be done at a lower price, but you have to have a starting point. We've contacted a company out of Louisville called Sustainable Streams that has done work like this in Kentucky, and they're working on gathering data to give us a scope of work, to give us a little bit better this better estimate, and that's going on right now. So, in order to move forward, we wanted to pass this resolution, and I'll ask Rand to read the resolution, and we'll answer any questions.
This is resolution number 22-04, Scott County Fiscal Court, Great Crossing Dam Hazard Mitigation Project. Whereas the Scott County Fiscal Court has for many years recognized both the recreational importance and the danger of the Great Crossing Dam section of the Elkhorn Creek to its citizenry. Whereas Scott County Fiscal Court acknowledges the significant financial and human costs incurred at the dam, which have in the past included injuries and deaths, prompting the court to initiate research and planning with regard to modifying the Great Crossing Dam in order to mitigate the likelihood of such future events. Whereas Scott County Fiscal Court has identified the current community projects funding application window through Congressman Barr's office as an opportunity to receive federal funding to complete a mitigation construction project that will remove the dam's life-threatening boil zone. Now therefore, be it resolved by the Scott County Fiscal Court as follows. Scott County Fiscal Court resolves to pursue $2.4 million in community projects funding, commits to meeting the required 25% match with local funds and or resources, and fully authorizes Judge Executive Joe Pat Covington to sign any necessary applications, due diligence, or documentation necessary to facilitate the successful receipt of such an award.
So before we take comment or question, I'd like, some of our members of our Scott County Fire Department just recently did swift water training, rescue training. And, this is a opportunity to reduce risk for our staff as well, because whenever there's a call, our staff's going to be right there, trying to do whatever they can to help. And we can do all the training we can, but the opportunity to help by mitigating the risk, and there's no magic wand. I mean, there is no magic wand. There's still a risk, but by eliminating that boil, it would be a step in the right direction. So I'll ask for any comment from the court.
Judge, I'll just say that when I heard about this grant, I reached out to some of the constituents who had come in front of this body, as well as who attended the meeting with Fish and Wildlife at Great Crossings High School, and sent them pictures, and they were in support of the county moving forward with this. And they'd also offered to send letters of support for the rock dam mitigation system as well, if we need to do that as far as in the future for support.
Thank you. Any other comment down here?
I've heard that same response from some folks about supporting, and probably many of them are duplicated.
Yeah.
They were in the room here and at the public hearing. One quick comment about the 75-25, just so if I did the math right. So if we got that grant, the county's part would be $600,000. But is there, a lot of times with grants, we're able to put things in there in kind.
There is an in-kind opportunity, yes, sir.
So there is some opportunities.
Yeah, and what that could look like is a collaboration between the quarry and us, and our staff maybe moving rock, and maybe a donation, but there is in-kind opportunities, yes, sir. And we'll get a better, like
When you get a real price,
when we,
it might be $25 is a lot lower.
yeah,
Right. No, but just looking at the numbers we have.
yeah. But we had to start somewhere, and we had to put,
Sure.
the turnaround time was really quick, and I'd like to publicly thank Jared. Jared got on it and helped navigate getting the proper documentation. Tim Thompson.
This is huge for my district, Canewood specifically. They utilize the creek, and this was a tough one for me, and I'll be honest with you. the last fatality that we had, I was ready to get rid of it. That was just me personally. Let's just get rid of this thing because I've ran boats with both those gentlemen over there, searching for victims. And, but I also understand the significance of what the creek does and what the dam does and what the benefits it has. So I think this is a great compromise. It allows us to be able to utilize the creek for what it's there for. It allows us to be able to keep that pond area, but also it minimizes the risk not only for kayakers and so forth, but for these guys over here. So I'm in support of it.
I'll make a motion.
Well, I'm going to make a comment too. And I do like the idea. It is pretty expensive. But my question would probably be for one of the engineers that would build this. Is this during normal water flow times? Because sometimes when we have big floods and it really raises, does this thing even, does it help then?
No,
That's
like when the water's going just, you know, in a flood.
They explained that in one of those meetings, that when the water's totally over the dam and running level over the dam, it has, that undertow has no bearing. That's why they explained.
But this rock ramp would start at the level of the dam or just below it, and it would stair step down. And what it does is it eliminates when a kayaker or swimmer goes over the dam, they get caught in that boil, and the boil just continues to churn, and you can't get out of the boil. By having this rock ramp, water still goes, but it just moves down where there's no boil. And there's still danger.
Yeah.
There's still
So
danger.
in a flooding situation, it would still work.
In a flooding situation, you're just going to go with you go over, you're just going to keep going. In this situation, when you get caught in that boil, it's just like a washing machine.
Okay. No, I think it's a good compromise.
Yeah, and when the water's up flowing like you're talking about, it's dangerous anyway, whether it's down there or not. When it's up over
And I think we've got
flowing,
a couple, I mean, that's when we've had some issues, it seems like.
Yeah.
You would think somebody'd be crazy enough to.
The last fatality, regretfully, was at a high water level situation. You know, since then, JR has gone and we've ordered a gate to be put up at the mouth of the park, and JR goes and we talk, and JR closes it if that water gets up high. And that's just an effort for us to try to help. But people still climb over the gate. People still, you can't, there's no magic wand, but trying to help. So I think we've got a motion. If there's no other comments, second.
I did have another comment.
I'm sorry, Alvin.
That's all right. I like the idea. I'm glad we're getting this, potentially getting this done. But my question was ownership of the dam. Fish and Wildlife still owns it. If we do this, we need to get ownership of that thing so they don't still want to take it out.
Yeah.
Well,
Good point.
I spoke with Commissioner Storm 2 days ago, shared, I'd already talked to him about when we were talking about the FEMA, and shared that we were now looking at Congressman Barr's. They will talk to us about any, if we want to go down that road. But this would be built and would be separate from the dam. It's going to butt up to the dam. I don't think if this is built, the dam really becomes it's no longer. I think no longer. But I'm not a professional engineer, so we'd need to get that that piece. But if the court wanted to buy the dam, we could certainly talk to them about it. But I think information from an engineer about once this is installed, would the dam fail? That's a question that an engineer would have to answer.
I don't know that we'd have to take ownership of it, but maybe a long-term commitment from Fish and Wildlife that they would not seek to remove it for a good length period of time. If we're going to do this, that's my concern.
And Commissioner Storm, there'll be another commissioner, and they might think differently.
Yeah.
So
there is merit in what you're saying, no doubt.
Well, in that conversation, I thought that they said that they would consider selling it to us, and I thought that they bought it from the county years ago for $1.
I'm not sure.
From a private owner.
Okay. I mean, yeah. I'm just saying that we had that discussion. I'm glad you brought that back up because I thought the question was asked to him in such a manner, will you work on that? I guess that's not went anywhere.
Well, it's
Other than that conversation, yeah.
And we've kind of turned the focus to mitigation and looking at other options. I think there definitely would be open to the conversation.
I think Corey has a good idea. We'll take half of what it was going to cost them to remove it as us taking ownership of it.
We could talk to them. It definitely would be a savings for them. So we have a motion. Did we have a second?
Yes, that's it.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. As I skipped ahead earlier, we're going to table number 13, and we'll talk about that at the work session on Friday, and then come back on the 13th for approval. 14, we have a Board of Adjustment. We have one appointment and one reappointment. The reappointment would be for Sonia Barrett, willing to continue serving, and Joe Kane recommends that reappointment. And then Kim Stamper, her term ended, and that's what created the vacancy. And I shared a resume for, of course, we put out on social media, the opening for Board of Adjustment, and it's been on social media, and we've shared that. We've had one individual express interest in serving, and I think Rick spoke with Mr. Cooper, and then I've called Mr. Cooper myself, Tommy Cooper, and he said he would definitely be interested in serving on the Board of Adjustments. Rick, you have any comment?
Well, he told me the same thing. It's hard to turn down a volunteer, especially he started contacting me last year about finding a position that he could possibly serve in like this. So,
Mr. Cooper served in the past as a constable, what other questions or comments would anyone have? And
It's 4-year term. 4-year term.
yes,
Can I get separate motions, reappointment?
yeah.
would there be a motion to reappointment?
So moved. Sonia Barrett.
Ms. Barrett. So we have a motion. We have a second from Kelly. Any other question or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And then is there a motion to appoint Mr. Tommy Cooper?
Yes.
From Mr. Rick Hostetler, a second from Tim Thompson. Any other question or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Number 15 is, JR has been very helpful, and we've been working with Marilla and Ramona of Element Design. And I don't know if anybody's been to Lyle Road to the soccer complex, but you can see real progress. The weather's been friendly. They have parking lot gravelled out, and they're putting the curbs down. Two of the fields are close to being, I'd call it almost finished grade, but they just got to go back and knock the top off. The block for the foundation, the footer's been poured, and the first bottom part of the block has been laid for the building. So they're really moving along. JR took a team over there because there was an area that needed at the end of between the soccer fields and Lemons Mill Elementary. The fence row needed to be cleaned out with a significant amount of underbrush and then some bigger trees that needed to be cleaned out, and that wasn't in the scope of the contract. JR and his team took care of that this week, and we're probably going to need to go in there and put a little bit of fence in that wasn't in there couldn't see it because the trees were covered it up so bad. So we'll have to probably add a little fence, but this thing's moving along, and it's a long time coming. I think it'll be well received. Just thinking about, as we move forward and pricing and costs going up, we approved the site electric back, as a change order because it kind of got left out of the package. But it did not include the fixtures, the poles for the common area lighting. It's $33,000 to go on and get this done at one fell swoop. I think it'd be short-sighted not to go ahead and do it. The only other thing that we're going to have to add that I'm aware of is, the seed and seeding of those fields. The common area is going to be hydro seeded by the contractor, but the seed and the seeding, originally Parks and Rec were going to do that. Parks and Rec do not have the equipment to do it. They've got a nice seeder, but they don't have a tractor that's got the wider tires on it. I've talked to a local vendor about giving us a price. JR's talked to him as well. We just haven't gotten the price yet. So that's one other piece that's. Well, we won't say no to that. But the lighting. All right. Well, if we can talk about that. No, wouldn't say no. That's for sure. But the lighting, I just feel like let's go on and knock that. It's only going to get higher.
And take longer to get.
And take longer to get. So I would like consideration of motion to approve the change order for $33,000 for the lighting fixtures and poles. Yes, sir. Motion. Is there a second?
We can only talk about it so long.
Second, Dwayne. I'm just trying to be transparent, share the truth. So we got a motion, we got a second. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? The motion passes. All right. Thank you all. Now, Rand has the bid results for hay, barn, salt, EnviroPatch, and paving materials. JR, would you like to comment before Rand reads anything? And JR and I was talking today, and really, this bid, we probably need to go on and get ourselves in the queue because we don't want to look up next winter and not have salt. And you'd like to comment to that?
The prices has went up just a little bit, even on asphalt and everything, over last year. Of course, most of that's due to fuel charges and everything, but I think we're $12 a ton higher this year, but there's a shortage of salt too from what I'm understanding and talking to some people, and I would highly recommend us taking this salt bid of a.
So thank you, JR. So I'll let Randall read the bids.
On hay, one bid, Brad Medford, $500. On the barn, one bid, Brad Medford, $250. On salt, there are three bids. Morton is $102.88 a ton. Compass, $101.72 a ton. And Cargo, $106.23 a ton. The EnviroPatch, one bid, Hudson, $4.25 a gallon for Enviro and 35 cents a gallon for Pug Mill. Paving materials, one bid from Hamilton Hinkle. The base is $71.23 and the surface is $74.87.
So the recommendation would be to accept the bids as shared, with Compass being the low bidder at $101.72 per ton.
I need a motion for hay.
All right. Is there a motion to accept the hay bid? Motion from Rick. Is there a second from Alvin Lyons? Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The barn bid at $250. Motion from Kelly Corman. Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Dwayne Ellison. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Is there a bid to accept the Compass bid of $101.72 per ton for salt? Motion from Alvin Lyons, second from Tim Thompson. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Then for Enviro Patch, the Hudson bid of $4.25 a gallon for Enviro, and then that's $1.35 per gallon for Pug Mill.
Oh, is it? I'm sorry,
I think it's $1.35.
I said 35 cents.
Yes,
I'm sorry, I thought
it's,
that was.
it's just 35. Okay.
Okay.
I don't have my glasses on. So just to clarify, Hudson $4.25 a gallon for Enviro, and then 35 cents per gallon for Pug Mill. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion from Chad Wallace, a second from Dwayne Ellison. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. And then finally, paving materials. The motion would be for $71.23 for base and $74.87 for surface. Is there a motion? Motion from Alvin Lyons, second from Dwayne Ellison. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all.
I have one question, JR. Is the state contract not cheaper? Hamilton Eagle, they're on the state contract. It's better to do that.
They gotta be,
Because they can actually be lower because they don't have to transport whatever, get out there. Right, they don't have to. Okay. Because the state contract makes them go higher because they have to add all those. Okay.
And
Well, you
I know, I'm talking in code
Well,
over
I've
here.
done it before now I think about it. Yeah.
all right. So
State contract, which is usually cheaper
we'll move to
when they're lower.
we'll move to Fire Department new hire Jeff Mudrack and Chief John Ward's present.
Thank you, Judge, Court. On behalf of Chief Ward, I am pleased to recommend the appointment of Ronnie Brown, and it would be a reappointment, rehire for him. He'd be coming back to us on a part-time basis effective Monday, May 2nd at $10.51 an hour. So I present that recommendation to you. He's been with us in the past. He was a full-time firefighter for almost 5 years.
Motion for approval.
Motion from Chad Wallace, second from Dwayne Ellison. Any other questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. The next one is Fire Department position modification.
Okay.
And it's my understanding that originally that this position, the training coordinator, was a battalion chief position. And over time, it was modified and not held at that rank status. Is that correct?
That's correct. And John knows more about the background and the history on
Yeah,
that. He's
pretty
done the
much
research.
whoever basically got promoted in that position, they came in with whatever rank they had.
Okay.
But when it was first done, it was a major, which they later down the road renamed their majors battalion chiefs that took that position when it was first created.
And the recommendation is to make the training coordinator a battalion chief level position.
Some of my thoughts on that as well is, the training coordinator, he, to me, is an administrative leadership position. He's a 40-hour-a-week position. He, is overall responsible for all the training within the department. He leads that training majority, or he designates it to somebody else. But, in my opinion, when you're at the lieutenant or captain rank, that's pretty much a company-level officer position within the fire service. Getting up into battalion chief rank is more of an administrative position. So that's the reasoning for my recommendation.
Would it be an additional person, or would it just be?
No, we
No.
currently have one vacant. We have it vacant, yes.
So it's just a reclassification of the existing position. And in addition to it being reclassified from captain to battalion chief, it would also be converted from an hourly non-exempt position to a salaried exempt position, so exempt from overtime privileges, which that would provide us with some slight salary savings. It would be at least a $2,000 salary savings based upon our assessment, but and it could be, not knowing who's going to fill the position, it could be even more possibly. Or, of course, also, I think when you looked at the position descriptions, you saw a greater focus on the training component of the job, as well as the safety component that John would like to see this position also hold.
Yeah. Basically, they would be overall responsibility for the safety aspect of the department. And plus serve on the safety committee that the county has.
Questions, comments?
Motion.
Any other question or comment? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Fire Department policy revision.
Okay. I'll start with a couple of quick comments and let John just chime with whatever he would like to share too. A couple of SOPs that we're going through the SOP review. One of the SOPs that John wanted to kind of start dealing with sooner than later was the SOP revisions to fire lieutenant in Campton. We do have a need to fill up fire lieutenant positions, so we felt like it was important to get moving on this. We've been working on the edits together, and basically what you would see in there is that he cleaned up some of the wording and clarified expectations, and also applications will be sent to my attention instead of the assistant chief's attention, which is the way the current document reads. Also a revision to the testing process. Right now, the test involves a 70% written exam, then a 25% interview process, and then 5% is given to longevity. The change would make it 30% written, 40% a performance assessment, which is not part of the current process at all. And Chief Ward felt like that was extremely important. And then 30% would be given to the interview at the end. And then the last component would be some longevity points after all the scoring is tabulated. So anything else you have to add, John?
Just the practical assessment portion, to me, that's important. To me, that's where we get to identify how somebody's going to handle, say, an emergency scene, how they're going to handle a personnel issue. So it's basically real-life scenarios that they're given to, and they have to respond to a panel on how they would handle that situation. To me, that is very important that somebody knows that, you know that they know how to do the job. So that's, again, my opinion, that is, very important in this process. But again, this policy would be for promotions of lieutenant and captain.
And, there's all different learning styles, and the ability to be able to articulate what you really know instead of it just being on a piece of paper.
Correct.
To being able to share that, I think is a step in the right direction. Tim Thompson, you like to make any comment?
I mean, I highly agree with Chief Ward. We do that as well, and I think it shows the capabilities of somebody. Somebody can maybe be really good at taking a test, but you don't really know what they're capable of doing. And when you put them in those pressure zones, those pressure moments, it shows what they're able to do. So then it also gives you some leeway if somebody does really, good on a test, but then they totally bomb a, scenario, then that's going to help you to say, maybe we can go some another direction.
But I do believe that this gives the applicant, somebody that's, a different way to be able to express their ability. I would hope that, as we move forward, looking at new applicants to the fire service, I know we have a written test, and I couldn't tell you the weighting on that written test, what it is, but I do know that I'd hope that we could look at, how are other ways to evaluate. I know we have to have a written test, but what other things can we incorporate in evaluating applicants as we move forward on that as well? Would you all agree with that?
Yeah, it just depends, especially, with the way we've currently been hiring, if they have experience, that's a plus for them, but if they don't, it's kind of hard to, ask somebody that don't have experience,
Sure.
How they would handle a different situation. But we can look, I'm always open to looking at
it's just the same
ways how we can evaluate the applicant.
And it's a different pot, that's for sure, because of experience and such.
And the thing is, we want, when we extend that, the hiring process out there, we want to attract the best of the best. We want to hire the best of the best. So whatever we can do through that evaluation process to help us determine who's at the top, that's the direction we want to go.
Questions?
What you've had a lot of experience doing over the last, at the city level, this is kind of how you've been running the city.
Similar, yeah. I tell you the truth, I can't remember what the percentages was, yeah. But it's something similar to this, yeah. Yes.
Questions?
But the important part is that 70% of this exam, though, when you consider the practical performance assessment and the oral interview, I mean, that's 70% of the scoring for the process.
Right. And again, I just, my big thing is, yeah, written is important, but I don't want to put so much percentage on it that if somebody's a great test taker, that they could bypass somebody that is real smart out on the streets, so just trying to balance that. And it's an overall, evaluation of the candidates. Because, when we put this out, I'm sure we'll have a good number that's going to put their name in the hat. And they'll all be good. It's just who will rise above and rise to the top. But this just gives us the ability, I don't want to be, we just put application or process out there, people apply, and we just look at it and say, okay, we think you be, I want a way to evaluate them to see who is out above the rest. And it doesn't mean the others are not good, it's just that person excelled in all the different areas.
Any other questions or comments?
Just a quick comment. And it displays just the knowledge within the department. And if you see that there's a lot of people maybe saying this one particular thing throughout the process, then maybe that's something you can go back and look at it training. I really like it. I'll make has there been a motion made?
Not been a motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'll
Stole it.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I have no new business.
Thank you all.
Any court members have any new business?
Have you heard any more from Charter Spectrum about where they're at in the?
Yes.
I know we talked to them a week or so ago with.
Yeah. I mean, they're just, moving as fast as they can.
They act like they're kind of in the last phase, and
Yeah.
for them, the last phase is the getting all the pole.
Yeah, they're working on that and the engineering aspect, and he is very hopeful that construction will start within the next few weeks. So,
Thank you, Judge.
yes. New business down here.
I do have, I'm sorry, I've talked a lot tonight.
It's all right.
As far as the dam, we brought that up, and I was going to bring it up when we were discussing it, but I was just curious if there would be a way that maybe we could put up some signage that just said Lowhead Dam approaching or something like that. Is that something that either we have or that we could do just to be able to maybe allow people to know that they are approaching?
It's already there.
Would you come to the? Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, we're EMA and County Fire is in process of developing those signs. We're actually going to put them in both languages, English and Spanish, so that people know Lowhead Dam 1,000 feet ahead. No boating past this particular point. Being able to put the rock ramp at the end of the dam is going to be huge for us, but we still want to continue our project. We started out to do mile markers so that people that got lost could say, I see a sign that says number 5 or number 3. And then we're putting signs over the overhanging bridges so that, same answer. When you call 911, we have a fighting chance of figuring out what part of the creek you're on. So we've added the warning signs as part of that project.
Okay, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mike.
One other
Rick
thing,
Costello.
maybe, I don't know if Chief Ward's even had a chance to talk about it, but I had a request from a constituent several months ago now about a fire hydrant on South Ray's Fork. And I don't know, Chief, if you've had a chance to. I did talk to that guy and asked, he is on Kentucky American, and he actually had to put a pressure reducing valve in after he tied onto them, so.
Coming up to his house.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
We've been communicating with Kentucky American because we're just trying to figure out the expense. Who incurs the expenses? Is it the county? Is it, that's.
I know there's like a rental fee or.
So Chief Ward and I had a conference call with Representative of Kentucky American, and I've emailed a group of questions to them and still waiting on response, but we have.
I know that's a pretty good number on the, I saw it earlier in the budget talks. I think it's around 100,000. Does that sound right?
There's that
For
much
fire
of a
hydrants out in the
rental,
county?
yes.
Yes. So we're
So-
trying to figure, get all that squared away, and that way.
Okay.
We have a process going forward on.
Right.
When those requests come in. So-
Right.
But
Thank
I haven't forgot about you.
I didn't think you had. Thank you, Chief.
Any other new business?
I have one question, and I've just been talking with some people out on 460 about the widening.
I'm sorry,
No,
Kelly.
just the 460 widening project, if the state's given us any new information.
The state, Kelly, you and I have talked with the state many times, and I've talked to Kelly Baker within the last 10 days. Kelly Baker is District 7 Director for State Transportation. And, Kelly and I have both voiced our concern about the north proposed alternative route and have expressed that we do not support that north alternative route. They're still doing environmental and engineering estimates on the southern route that would go to the south. There are some issues with that as well. And then they're also looking at, could you just slow traffic down a little bit and take traffic directly right through Newtown? My concern about that is that it doesn't matter how many signs you put up, how many flashing arrows, how many rumble strips, you're still going to have trucks that are going at a speed that's above the posted speed limit. And that traffic, that route will do nothing but, if you expand most of the road to have these better, wider lanes and a better shoulder, you're going to have more traffic, in my opinion. So I'm very hopeful that
It sounds like if Baker's supportive of it, why is it not just going there? I mean,
it's about getting final information about the south cost and the environmental piece as well. But I do believe that and I can't speak for them, but I do believe that the north route is one that they're not, it's not as positive as it was. And there's never been a decision made at all. But we've expressed that we don't support the north for sure, and hopeful they would come back and have a southern route that would have limited impact on existing structures. The southern route would be a little bit higher because you're going to have more bridges because of just the topography. But I believe that we'll have more information soon and can share with the community. And I've also asked, before anything was done, about having another community meeting. So I think that would be something that would happen as well. Any other question or comment? Kelly, thanks for bringing that up. Any public comment from anyone with us? Chris Runyon.
Evening, Judge, Magistrates. It's been a long evening. I'll be brief. As you guys are aware, in January of this year, we began our EMT class in an effort to kind of grow our own EMTs and hopefully very soon paramedics. That group of students is scheduled to graduate on May 18th at 6:30 at ECS. We just wanted to extend an invitation to you guys to come out and share in that process, because that class certainly wouldn't have happened without your dedication and support to the first responder community. So we hope you can come out and join us.
May 18th.
May 18th at 6:30.
ECS, 6:30.
Yeah, we're going to have a graduation ceremony for those students, and we hope you can join us there.
Fantastic. Appreciate it. One item of housekeeping that Stacy just mentioned we need to make sure we had in the record was, before we had this meeting, we did have a budget workshop. No action, of course, taken, but let the record reflect that the court has received a draft budget. So just let the record reflect that. Anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn? Rick Hostetler, David Livingston with a second. All those in favor?
I'm all in favor.
Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned.
Let me tell you this real